these spirit, soul, intellect, various philosophies have moved them around. Uh, I think of the soul as a kind of, um, well, you know how I think we can assume that we all have a pancreas, but probably no one here has ever seen their pancreas. Well, that's because it's in a place, it's in a dimension that's rarely revealed, i.e., within the confines of the tissue of your body. I think of the soul as a hyper-dimensional organ. It's an organ that you can't see, like the pancreas. But if you open up the body, you will see the pancreas. You won't see the soul. But if you were to rise up into a higher mathematical dimension, a human being would look like a worm, because the worm would extend from birth to death. All the intermediate states would be there. The entire lifetime would be perceived in a single moment. And that's how I think of the soul. The soul is not who you are now. The soul is who you are and will be and have been. So it's yourself extended in time. You know, Plato said time is the moving image of eternity. And what we were doing last night, in a way, was looking at snapshots of that moving image. I think that at death, if the soul survives, then in a sense what happens is you flow back through your entire life, and it exists all at once in a single moment. I mean, that's the paradox of hyperspace, that what is serially presented in Newtonian space is holistically apprehended in hyperspace. And similarly, there is a group soul, a group mind, and all the same processes apply. In a way, the transcendental object at the end of time is history. History, you know, I think I said, at least I think, that history is like a psychedelic experience. And we are building toward the apotheosis, the place where language fails, where the ego dissolves. You can no longer make sense of it. It's been getting weirder and weirder, and finally the speed at which the weirdness is accumulating just avalanches over you, and you can no longer make sense of it. But an idea which I didn't talk about very much in this workshop, but that's dear to my heart, is the idea of the philosopher's stone. In the 16th century in Europe, before the rise of modern science and chemical theory, the ontological distinction between world and self was not as strongly defined as it is in modern people. And consequently, people working with substances entered into a kind of participation mystique in which the contents of the unconscious were actually projected onto matter. And Carl Jung made much of this because he realized that these alchemical texts, which are so cryptic and bizarre, could be treated like dreams because they were downloads of unconscious material. But I think that the alchemists were, in a sense, on the right track, in that what is being sought in the concrescence, what the essence of the thing at the end of the world is it's a union of spirit and matter, is what it is. And it's a union of spirit and matter that occurs in such a way that each retains the characteristics that it brought into the union. In alchemical terms, this is called a coincidentia positorum. In modern terms, it's not allowed. It's a logical contradiction. But I think that the essence of understanding the world is to be able to hold a logical contradiction in your mind, and not force things to be either or. And the philosopher's stone is the idea that you could have a kind of matter, I mean, think of it as a small pebble, which is yet somehow made of mind, and hence is an object freely commandable in the imagination. And they sought this. They tried to make this. This was a technological agenda from 1540 up until the 30 Years' War. And the universal panacea, you know, the panis supersubstantiales, all these terms for this lapis, this stone. And what it is it's a place in space and time where anything can happen. Anything can happen. So imagine that what we are involved in collectively, and each of us, is an effort to give birth to the soul, to somehow cause the soul to come into existence. One way of thinking about this, I think I said this earlier, but it probably means more now, is that the historical enterprise is an effort to turn the human body inside out so that the soul becomes visible and the body becomes a process that you can command in the imagination. Do you understand what that would look like? So then here's the comic book version of what I'm talking about. Here we have the philosopher's stone. I have just, by a cryptobiological process, regurgitated it into my hand, and here it is. Okay, so it's my soul objectified outside my body. It's a holographic matrix of space and time. When you look into it, you can see stars in there. And if you need to go somewhere, you stretch it out and sit on it, and it carries you there. And if you're hungry, you eat it. And if you need a shower, it becomes a levitating shower head above your head from which warm water pours. And if you need to know something, you ask it. And if you need to wear something, it becomes it. And what it is it's a union of matter and your imagination. And you say, well, such a thing could only happen in a dream. Well, quite right. I think we may be headed into a dream, either the after-death dream or the nano-cyber-technological dream or the pharmaco-shamanic dream. We are headed into some kind of a dream. We are going to live in the imagination. And the imagination is the domain of the soul. I mean, I'm not kidding. We are going to live in the imagination. It will cease to be metaphor. It will become real estate. That's how real the imagination is going to be. And it may be virtual reality, pharmacological reality, after-death reality, nanotech reality. We'll find a way. We will find a way. Because I think that this union of spirit and matter is an agenda in the human program that runs very, very deep. This is why we spoke for the first time. Language is a union of spirit and matter. The spirit of the thinking mind and the very ephemeral matter of the air, which can carry an acoustical signal. The word is on its way to becoming flesh. Wasn't that the promise? And similarly, the flesh is on its way to becoming word. That's what all that raving is all about. The language is a partial condensation of the philosopher's stone. So is a 747. It will carry you places. All technology is the effort to create ultimately the ultimate tool. The ultimate tool. And what can the ultimate tool do? And what is the ultimate tool for? The ultimate tool can do anything. Obviously, that's what the ultimate tool is. Well, now it's very interesting that we have arrived in the last 40 years or so into the realm of the cybernetic machine, because it has a different ontos than previous tools. I don't know how much you know about computers, but think of what all a computer is. Even the most sophisticated of computers is an enormous set of switches. And so here you have a machine with 50 million switches. Set the switches one way, and it will predict the weather. Set the switches another way, and it will give you a hell of a chess game. Set the switches another way, and it will balance your checkbook. The computer begins to look like the crudest approximation of the union of spirit and matter. And look at it. There it is. Gallium arsenide, silicon, gold, platinum. But what is flowing through it? Electrons. But these electrons flow according to the architectonic plans of thought. It's thought that flows in the computer, not its thought, our thought. We tell it what to think, and it thinks it. And as the computer shrinks, and as the data storage increases, more and more spirit is being stored in less and less matter. And, we talked about virtual reality. We talked about implants that could create dream states, or maybe we didn't, but it was on my mind. All of these things. And so I think, that through technology, we are taking our oldest intuitions, call it the intuition of the dream time, and creating it so that it is real. And the alchemical union, which was abandoned by early modern science, actually will reemerge as a reasonable scientific endeavor once the new sciences of information theory and chaos theory and complexity theory and so forth and so on are put in place. We are in a position to create the philosopher's stone. And, it will not only carry you through space, it will carry you through time. That technology, which appears to be just a secular concern of capitalism and scientific R&D, is in fact a sacred calling. And that the purpose of it is to mirror the mind of human beings through the perfection of the tool, and that the perfect tool, when it arrives, will end the historical process, which was the tool-making process. And it will end it by virtue of the fact that, among other features, the philosopher's stone allows you to move through time.